how 3D printing is changing and shaping the future. A 3D printed brand new heart as a replacement for a damaged one? That's not possible. Technology has advanced so much in the last few years. But let's see how much 3D printing has changed how we see the future. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on post notifications before we move on so you won't miss out on the exciting stuff we post every week. What is 3D printing? 3D printing is also known as additive printing. It is constructing a three-dimensional object from a computer-assisted design or CAD model or another three-dimensional model. If you haven't witnessed it, 3D printing still feels like magic. While ordinary conventional printers print line by line, 3D printers print layer by layer. It uses different materials such as liquids, grain, or powder. These materials are fused layer by layer to print the resulting 3D model. How does 3D printing work? 3D printing has been around since the 1980s, only that back then it was known as rapid prototyping. For you to be able to print in 3D, you need a 3D model. You can create one from scratch using software designed for this purpose, or you could download a model from any 3D library. 3D printing is the exact opposite of subtractive manufacturing. You cut out a hollow piece of plastic or metal with a milling machine in subtractive manufacturing. 3D printing is super flexible. You can make complex shapes with it. There are many software tools available for creating digital 3D models. You have your Tinkercad, Inventor, Cinema 4D, Modo, AutoCAD, and more. These softwares help you create a 3D digital model that enables you to convert it into a printable file. When you have a printable file, the next step is to prepare it for your 3D printer. You prepare printable 3D digital models for your 3D printer by slicing. What is slicing? Slicing is as literal as it sounds. For your 3D printer to print a 3D model, the model has to be sliced into hundreds or thousands of layers. The process is known as slicing and is usually carried out by slicing software. An example of slicing software is Slicer. Once the slicing is done, it is fed into your 3D printer via Wi-Fi, storage device or SD, or Universal Serial Bus or USB. The 3D printer recognises this layered file and begins to print your 3D model layer by layer. How is 3D printing changing and shaping the future? 3D printing can be applied to any industry in the world. For this reason, it has received a lot of attention from investors and researchers. It is still an uncharted field that has gained a lot of progress in the last decade. 3D printing has gone beyond being able to print complex components that could not be manufactured, to saving lives and increasing productivity on a broad scale, while reducing costs at the same time. Let's take a look at the industries where 3D printing has made the most impact and will mean so much to its improvement in the future. Medical advancement. 3D printing can change how we look at the health sector. 3D printing has been influential in precision medicine and organogenesis. Precision medicine ranges from creating personalised organs, prosthetics, mechanical parts, food, and pills adapted to one's physiology. It's a great thing, really. 3D printing takes precision medicine to a whole new level. These things cannot be manufactured because they are specific to one person, so they always cost too much. But with 3D printing, you can make whatever it is you need to the specified requirement. Everyone knows that automation is becoming the next big thing. We now have self-driving cars that prioritise safety. Deceased organ donors sometimes come from car accidents. Car safety measures and self-driving vehicles have reduced that specific supply. But here is where 3D printing comes in. It is the new direction of organ transplant. Organogenesis means using 3D printing to create anatomical structures in cell cultures to imitate human organs' growth. This means that people in need of organ transplant wouldn't have to wait for a donor. They could just wait for one to be made for them without the risk of their body rejecting the foreign tissue. Most recipients of an organ transplant are always on lifelong anti-rejection medications. In the medical world, 3D printing has already been used to repair bone and cartilage damage. In 2014, some surgeons used the technology to reconstruct a man's face after being damaged in a road accident. The changes are enormous and there is more to come. If tissue can be regrown without fear of the body rejecting it, there's so much more that we could do and should be expecting to see in the next coming years. The transportation industry. This is one of the largest industries in the world. It would be unfair if the advancement of this tech hadn't brought some improvements in their line. Cars and airplanes are made up of various components that vary in size, all working together to create a perfectly tuned transportation mode. This means that manufacturing costs are an important variable in the production of these transport means. An example of the use of 3D technology we can all refer to is the Audi RSQ. Can you remember the movie I, Robot, in which Will Smith starred as the main actor? The Audi RSQ was made for that movie to depict what a car would look like in about 20 years from now. The car was Will Smith's car, and it had some attractive bodywork that was only achieved with 3D printing. It is a concept car and film product placement that you wouldn't see casually out on your street. Many automotive companies and jet engine makers have begun to use 3D printed parts in their vehicles. The Koenigsegg One is made by the Swedish car manufacturing company Koenigsegg. In 2015, a Royal Air Force Eurofighter jet flew with printed parts as well. Recently, the United States Air Force has begun to work with 3D printers, and the Israeli Air Force has also purchased a 3D printer to print spare parts. 3D printed food. Yes, it's real. 3D printed food is an achieved reality. I've seen many movies where you walk up to something that looks like a vending machine and pick any kind of food you like, wait for a few minutes, and have it ready to be eaten. The bright side of this is that people can use this method to tackle one of the world's biggest problems, hunger. 3D printed food is a sustainable solution to the rising rate of the world's population. It might not be tasty, but oil and powder can create nutritional foods that keep malnutrition to the barest minimum. The best thing about 3D printed food is that the shelf life would be pretty long. This means that we also get to curb the waste of food. 3D printing will have an enormous impact on the world as we know it, and changing and reshaping many things. 3D printing can help solve the problem of home shortages. Home shortages are a real problem, especially in underdeveloped countries. The cost of building a home or renting one out is just too much for some to bear. 3D printed homes are slowly being accepted into the construction market. The first ever 3D printed house was completed recently for about $10,000 in less than 24 hours. The construction process can take a long while, especially complex ones. With 3D printing, you can lessen the time and money spent on projects like this. If you're wondering how something as largely scaled as a house could be done with a 3D printer, there are industrial-grade 3D printers that are over 20 feet tall and are capable of completing such feats. A new kind of crime. Every piece of tech has its upsides and downsides. Law enforcement agencies already have their hands full with trying to curb crime. 3D printed weapons would beat metal detectors or any other sort of sensors that they have installed. The US Department of Defense in 2012 disclosed plans to design a working 3D printed plastic firearm that can be downloaded and reproduced by anybody with a 3D printer. After its release, it raised concerns among the public about how this new development could affect gun control effectiveness. The application of this tech to measures such as these could mean that there would be many unregistered, untraceable firearms out there, making crimes easier to get away with. Let's all hope this technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands. 3D printing could mean a cleaner environment. Before we have you overthinking about this technology's downside, here's a significant improvement. 3D printing could mean a cleaner and safer environment. 3D printing can significantly increase localized manufacturing, which would mean that the use and release of fossil fuels during production will drastically reduce. 3D printing can also be used to step up our recycling game. Any discarded goods would be the new material fed into our 3D printer to create new things. This is much cleaner and uses less energy when compared to conventional manufacturing. This is bound to affect manufacturing giants like China that prioritises manufacturing for many countries. They have the largest market for manufacturing because of their exceptionally cheap labour. When other parties come into the knowledge of 3D printing and know its capabilities, manufacturing powerhouses like this would lose their effectiveness and reduce the carbon imprint on the environment. Additive manufacturing is the new thing. You add layers upon layers to create something. It is different from conventional manufacturing, which is more of a subtractive process, where the manufacturer carves a piece of material to produce a product. 3D printing will shape the future in ways we cannot yet fathom, and are already posing to make life even better. However, as investors take note of the opportunity and seize it, it is necessary to integrate the education on the use and workings of how the process works to help facilitate improvement. What do you think about 3D printing? If you had one, what would you print? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.